Thank you. Welcome, everybody. This will not take too much of your time. This is the I Alone Am the Honored One podcast, accept no cheap imitations. Um, I'm the commissioner, Q the Truth, 1566. Also, here with me is another admin. Please introduce yourself to the people who may or may not know you already, because we have new owners.
Yo, yo, this is your boy Steps. I am the San Francisco 49ers user, and I am 7-1. I am him. Unless you're
Nigga,
Dallas and AC, then I am not him. That
bro,
is all.
really? That's what
Yo,
we.
man.
That's what
That
we
game
doing.
was that game was humbling.
You can't say you're him then if you lost to another one-loss team, man.
I I don't even know who AC lost. Wait, AC lost to Cody.
Yes,
I
the
have
fuck
questions.
he did.
Yeah, and I have questions now that I've seen him play.
That's
Never
crazy.
mind. Continue. I'm not
We'll
hijacking this. Go ahead.
I don't know if we can get AC in here, but
Yeah, that's not happening. AC is not joining this party
I
or this podcast.
you're probably right. But anyway, the theme of this particular podcast for this one is us debating the top owners in the SFL. What we will not be doing today is debating on the punishment for the stat threshold because we pretty much already know what's about to happen. That'll be addressed either later tonight or early sometime tomorrow. But back into this, it started off with a conversation last week, and I'm actually a day later on the pod, but just gonna give you the names and give you my thoughts on these people. The actual 10 themselves, I will not put them in order per se. If anything, I'll probably put them in alphabetical order. But we got a couple of guys outside that we're gonna talk about first. So, quote unquote, number 12 right now would actually be, to some people's surprise, Castro. And
Hmm.
I don't know if it's a melding of his ability with his team because he has the Madden cover board. They have a bunch of abilities, man. But right now, he's absolutely rocking. He got that team moving for better or worse. Uh, He's had some complaints. It's pretty much the same song and dance. Like he played or plays similar to how Ed did Rip. Because
RIP.
if they quote unquote respect you, then you may get several coverages. And if they really don't give too much of a damn about you, you're getting cover zero for the most part. I've seen it happen. But right
I
now,
also have seen that happen.
he's operating, I don't want to say at a high level, but he's pretty efficient with what he's doing. And he's 7-1 right now. Gameplay wise, just because I'm listing you as one of the better owners, and this is not slander, doesn't really, like, there's nothing really to write home about. It's just that you've done enough to distance yourself from the rest of the pack. So maybe it would be different if he didn't have this team, but he does. So I kind of got him at that 12 spot. You got any thoughts on that, Steps?
um, I get it. I think sometimes users that are on the precipice of being in that top 10, which for this is top 12 range, I think typically what'll push them over the edge is going to be a bona fide roster that they're playing well with. And, I can't deny the results that Castro has had so far. I also can't count who exactly he has played that has made me take notice and say, oh, that's a good user he just went against. So I don't know. I think that's fine. 12. I mean, we got 30. Now we got 30 what? 30 users now or 29 users now.
Yeah,
And
something
of
like
that
that.
29, you're saying that he's in the upper half? Yeah.
He
Yeah, I agree.
won
He's in the upper
versus
half.
Mason. I don't know how much of Mason's games you've watched, but
I have. I've watched enough to know that Mason may be ranked a little higher than Castro. But I'm not going to spoil that, and neither should you. But I would not be surprised if Mason's in a higher tier than him. So that's an impressive win. I'll give him that. Sure.
okay. Moving along, just outside the top 10, and this is kind of skill based, but just in case we weren't clear, number 11 is to a guy who has really asserted himself and has stopped acting like a meek little bitch, and he's actually talking. He's talking that taste right now, and that is the Indianapolis Colts user, young Michael, or as Bryce calls him, Mikael the German. He has Anthony Richardson going. He got the run game going. He got the pass game going. He kind of reminds me of when he had Dallas. I don't know. Mike has these phases where, like, depending on the cycle, he may not be able to pass. He may not be able to run or whatever. And he has ability, and when he has talent, he's shown you he can go pretty far. Shit, he went to a Super Bowl, and right now, I mean, out of his own mouth, he told Bryce, a Super Bowl champion, that Bryce was in his division, that was his
Hmm.
division. Mike is
Talk that talk.
all types of spicy right.
Man,
You get what I'm saying? And as we kind of go through it, he won versus Bryce by 3 points, but he absolutely slaughtered LB. I just want to be like won by 4 touchdowns. That's
I didn't
not.
even realize he played LV.
Hey man. So it is what it is. Mike is 7-1, I believe, right now, and he's getting busy. And again, it's not just the team; there's skill involved, so that's why he's kind of outside the top 10. You got any thoughts on this?
Nah. Actually, I mean, I've seen him in a couple of his games recently, and he's got Anthony Richardson looking like a superstar. Uh, and he literally just got him to superstar. So I mean, he's nah. I got no qualms about that, man. I think when you're thinking about the users that we have in the league that are remaining, people that have dropped off, the people that are now on the up and up, nah. Mike at 11. That's solid. I think that's a good rating right there.
All right, so we're gonna move inside of the top 10, and we're gonna go in alphabetical order. I want to preface this by saying just because it's in alphabetical order does not mean this is the list. I'm just giving you the 10. But kicking off the list, we have Zach and the Chiefs inside the 10. They didn't start so well this year. They lost to TRC, but he actually lost to Cody as well. But if you pay attention to what he's got going on, and it's not necessarily his, it's not the people he's beating, because the people that he's actually won against, you would expect him to win against. But he got into an absolute shootout with Malik, and he ended up dropping that game as time expired. But Zach has always been like a perennial playoff owner, and now he has one of the three best teams in the game. And as a result, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. That is his division. He has the best quarterback in the game, and he should be winning this division. He has, I believe, 3 losses right now. I don't really see him losing a whole bunch more, maybe a handful. I think he probably finishes 11-6. But Zach can run the ball. Zach can he can pass. You can kind of get away with a little bit extra when you got somebody like Mahomes. And defensively, he's sound. He's one of those guys who likes the right analog to punish people. Not exactly sure how that's going to carry over later in the season when the fatigue kicks up. He's probably going to kill half his defense, but at least for right now, I have him inside of my top 10. Any thoughts on Zachary?
So I was listening to what you saying, right? And you made a brief comment about it being his division, and ultimately, I do think Zach is going to be a key player in that AFC playoff race and in the playoffs in general, right?
Okay.
But I just want to go through the users that he has lost to because he has 3 losses on the season.
Okay.
So he lost week 1 to TRC, 20-38. He lost week 4, Cody and the Jets, 14-42. And then he lost to Malik, who is in his division as the Los Angeles Chargers, 41-44. And Malik has only had 1 loss on the year, and that was to the Dallas Cowboys, who are either 6-1 or 7-1 right now.
I think they're 6-1, but yeah.
Okay, 6-1. So I say all this to say that Zach being the top 10 is more than fine. And obviously, you're just speaking in general, and you're not talking about an exact order.
Yeah, no, no,
But
not in exact order.
but I do think that if we were talking about where in that top 10, I'd probably put him in the lower half of that top 10.
I could agree with
Not
that.
saying exactly what number, but he would be closer to the lower end than the higher end. I can say that. But other than that, I have no problems with Zach in the top 10. Zach has played solid games. He did win against Ed, RIP, when he was here. He thoroughly dismantled him. I remember that game. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I saw the game against Malik, and he played really well. It's just, Malik pulled it out at the end and saved my pick'em. God bless you, Malik. Uh, Other than that, yeah, no, I got no problems with him being in the top 10. That's solid.
Gotcha. All right, so moving on. Next up, again, not the particular any particular order. We got TRC and the Lions. Now, he has there was a series where he had three straight losses. One was via Sim, but then he dropped a 3-point game versus Nate, where he probably could have should have pushed that to overtime. That could have gone either which way, but that was an L. And
That game irritated me so much
why is that?
because the ending, he went for the touchdown when he was in field goal range and time was running low. He had no business doing it. Still did it anyway. It was a very Ed like play. Just it was idiotic. But go ahead. I love you, TRC, but I was disgusted. But by all means, continue.
Well, go pause or go home, right? And that's division
Yeah, and
stuff.
he
Like we
he went
started
home.
off where the North was like the strongest division, and maybe in the league because you had Ed, TRC, and Nate, and Ed pretty much got him removed himself. I kid you not, but that's another story for another day. But even with that, TLC, like you mentioned before, won against that. He won against Turk convincingly. He won against the Bucks convincingly. He won against LB by a touchdown. Won against Stacks. So and I mean, he has this is his bye week now, but Malik is on the horizon. Nate is on the horizon. So AC is on the horizon. So we're gonna see exactly what he can do. I still think he's gonna make the playoffs, but he's sound. He's really sound. Like in his play calling, like his pass concepts. I'm not gonna I mean, that would be really fucked up if I just sat here and just start dropping scouting reports on people. So I'm not gonna do that. But the way he attacks defenses, you can tell he's skillful, and he does it a little better than most here. So in that regard, shout out to TRC in regards to that. And he got a young, scrappy team. I know he just got rid of Amon-Ra St. Brown to you actually, but I really don't think that's gonna hinder him too much, and he should be fine. And as long as he's here and he's playing, he's competing, he's always gonna be a threat to the conference. But I do like the way that he plays, particularly on offense. Not to say that he isn't sound on defense, but his offense kind of stands out. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Any thoughts?
And yeah, piggyback off of that, TRC is one of those users that truly understands engine of Madden and he knows how things work. So if you give him a team with a good offense that has a lot of speed and a lot of young talent. He knows how to get the most out of them, and then he also knows how and what to do to get them to progress really quickly. He is, him and I had a conversation. I'm not going to reveal all the details of the conversation because, again, it's like giving out a scouting report, and I don't want to do that either. But him and I had a conversation, and we were talking about just the direction of our teams and just what we wanted to do long term. And he was speaking about two of his key players that he is doing anything and everything he can do to get them to be at that very high level talent. And that was Jamison Williams and Jameer Gibbs. And he has shown that in each game that he is going to feed them the rock, whether it's reverses and sweeps, whether it's go routes, digs, curls, drags, out routes, corner routes, Texas routes for Gibbs or line him out wide. Like I've seen so much stuff between those two players, and that's it, just those two. And then sometimes seeing Laporta, but just those two main players. I've seen him so much stuff with them. And teams just, for the most part, don't have an answer for it. I saw what he did to LB. Like that was a really good game by TRC. And for all intents and purposes, I know LB is not nearly as attentive to Madden like he had been in the past. That has made him a legend in the SFL. But I still give regard to the fact that TRC went out there and essentially dismantled what LB's calling card is, which is defense. So I agree. TRC definitely deserves the nod for the top 10. Um, when I think about teams and users in the top 10, I think about them in their previous stops and just how they perform there. I've seen him shine with the Tennessee Titans. I've seen him shine with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and now I'm seeing him shine with the Detroit Lions. So yeah, top 10 for sure.
So you can see that it's not a fluke. There's
Yep,
continued success, wherever he goes. That's the sign of a good owner. So,
facts.
and just to piggyback off of that, from afar, if you kind of know what you're doing, and it's easy to identify when other people have kind of figured out what works for them. And the key is to let that translate onto the field. And he's one of those guys that is able to do that. So that was TLC. Again, alphabetical order, so he was nine. So in eight, this is one of the newer owners, which is Rockin' from the Rams. And with that being the case, just a few things that well, guess I'll go through. He shut Turk out, but that was monitor gate. But
Jesus,
he lost the steps. Steps had a crazy comeback, and
I did.
so he won versus Mike, and I think that was Mike's one loss actually. And this had to be before Krim, man. Did Krim really play Rockin' as the Eagle?
Uh,
Couldn't have been, yo.
no.
All right, yeah,
Uh,
that shit
that
don't.
was versus the No, actually, because Krim played him twice. Krim won the second time, so no, that was Krim. Because Krim was the Bengals, and he won or lost against
Okay,
them 24-17, and then he switched that same week, and then he became the Eagles, and then he won that.
got you.
Rockin' lost to Krim.
Okay, cool. So Rockin' has his team is not up to par. I mean, he said he's in the middle of a 2 year plan. I'm not here to argue that. Everybody has their own visions on what they want to do. But
Shoot, it might be a 4 to 5 year plan, to be honest with you.
I spoke to Turk. It might have been. I think it was Turk. If it wasn't Turk, it was AC. It was one of them. But I posed the question like I would really like to see Rockin' if he gets like a franchise quarterback because Stafford is like at the end of his legs. So I would like to see him with a different QB. Just kind of watching him play, he can run the ball. Like he makes some of the more ballsy, tough throws in the league, and sometimes that leaves him prone to interceptions. But I'm watching him attempt some shit that other owners in the league wouldn't dare to. So shout out to him, kudos to him. And with that, just there's an experience factor that's going to start to play in because he's lost a couple of games he probably had no business losing. But as long as he's able to learn from that, I can definitely see him being a threat. Like defensively, like he's more ahead offensively to me than he is defensively. And like defensively, he's not necessarily using those tools or those key players on his team to the best of their ability. So that's going to kind of hinder him for now. But once he's able to kind of figure that part out and let the defense kind of catch up to what he's doing with the offense now, I think he can compete at a high level now if he can get that to happen. Like, don't get me wrong, he's skillful. But if, now it's, hypotheticals, if the defense can catch up to the offense and he can get a quarterback, I think he makes the playoffs every year. Like, I've seen that much from him to say, yeah, I think he can definitely challenge for a playoff spot every single year. But he's definitely newer, and I kind of I like what he's bringing to the table, especially offensively. Now, granted, it didn't necessarily look so good today versus Nate, but I'm just kind of, I kind of watch everybody from afar, keep my thoughts to myself, don't say too much. But I really do like the way he, handles business when it comes to him playing. Any thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple. So, I thought pretty much everything you said, 100% agree. Especially with if he had a more skilled quarterback to see like what he would be able to become as a user, I think he would be leaps and bounds above where he is now. Now, I think his approach to his team is a little iffy. I would have kept Cooper Cup because of the lack of talent on the offense, personally, or at least I would have went for a draft pick that was going to be a high draft pick in some type of way. I know that the value for draft picks are a little different, but if you're going to get rid of Cup, then you have to replace Cup with like a younger talent or talents or something because the team is young but not talented, and then there's older players that are really talented. So I don't know, but that's neither here or there. Just speaking about gameplay, I mean, I'm going off on a tangent. Speaking about gameplay specifically, though, I think he is solid offensively and defensively. We had a game earlier this season, and correction, because I've been saying this wrong. It was 23-6 going into the latter portions of the third quarter, and I just got on a run, and it was faith and luck as to why I won that game. Rockin played a solid game across the board, stifling my offense, doing just enough on his own offense to keep the game where it was, and it just unlucky breaks started happening. Matt Stafford started throwing bad passes, and he was missing and off target, throwing interceptions, and uh, running the football was getting difficult because everything else wasn't working. So it was just kind of cascading all into one thing, or else he would have had that win against me. So I agree. I think a better quarterback. I'd be interested to see what he could become. A better overall team. I think I think he would be a title contender with a better team. Now that's not saying that he's there now, like in the stratosphere of a Q or an LB or an AC or one of those individuals. But I will say that I think he has an ascension arc that is going up, up, up right now, and I can see it each game that he's improving in how he's playing according to the rules and just in general, just calling his game. Really great on offense and defense, both. Um, I just think that there are some holes that need to be filled and fixed, especially with this team direction, and I think he'd be fine. I think he'll make the playoffs for the most part. Maybe not this year because this year it's I don't know. I got to see how he plays against the rest of the competition he has this year. I know he plays Turks still again. He plays against me again. He plays against LB. He plays against Mason and the Commanders. Um, who knows who we're gonna have as the Saints user at that time? I gotta see it. But I think for the most part, everything I've seen from like the newer users, I think he's one of the two newer users that are just for sure on an upward trajectory in terms of like what their overall ability is.
Okay, understandable. So if you're just tuning in, uh, outside of the top 10, we had Castro and Mike. And getting into the top 10, we've spoken on Zach, we've spoken on TRC, and we've spoken on Rocket. So moving along now, this is actually the last new guy on the list, and that would actually be Mason in the Washington Commanders. So he's like brand spanking new as well, but I played him, and I've also kind of watched him from afar. I'm not gonna give away the things that he does, but he believes strongly. He's like a strong belief in the particular system that he runs, and that's completely good because he puts himself in a position where he makes it user on user. And if you're not going to be better than him with your user, then you are going to suffer. And that's just something to. I mean, he has the loss versus Castro, but that came with that was kind of minor controversy or whatever the case is. And then he lost to Atlanta, and he shot himself in the foot, calling a timeout with like less than 20 seconds left when Krim didn't have any timeouts. And
Ah,
then
man.
Krim actually was anti Krim. And for those of you who may not know, inside of the admin circle, to throw away a game is considered to be crimming the game away. And Krim has done this in regular season games. He's done this up 4 or 5 touchdowns in the playoffs. Like it is what it is. So nobody really throws away games like Krim does. But in the clutch, he out crimmed Krim, and that's saying something because Krim was pretty much dead to rights. I think AC told Krim that he had lead in his blood, just to let him know there was no ice in his veins at all. Like these are
Jesus.
the types of things that happens. But going back to Mason, and it ties in the Rocket as well. You know, you're in a sim league now. I can't speak to. I know for Mason, I believe this is his first sim league. And if you tell him something, he pretty much adheres to it, which is beautiful because that leads to growth. And I believe I'm not 100% certain this is Rockin's first sim league, but he definitely likes the immersion into it. If I'm wrong, then I apologize. But as far as Mason is concerned, like he has core values and that he believes to, like philosophically, I'm talking about on both sides of the football. If you watch, if you know, you know. You get me? And if he continues to play the way he does, he's gonna win a lot of games. So in order to defeat him, kind of have to sit down and pick apart what he does. Not to say that people can't pick it apart on the fly, but you would need, like my opinion, you would need like a nice cohesive game plan to go in there and win versus him. Otherwise, it's a long day at the office. He's another one that I think that if he had a franchise quarterback, he's doing way more than what he's doing right now. And right now, he's competing for a playoff spot. Any thoughts in regards to Mason?
I think Mason is a solid pick to be in that top 10. When I think about the new users in general that have been the most impressive, at first it was between him and Rockin, and I had Rockin in the lead. Um, Most recent games I've seen, I got to put Mason back in front. Mason has been very solid, some really good users, and I think he calls a very, very good offense and defense, and he users very well. I think that's probably the most underrated thing that I've seen from him so far is the way that he uses his defenders. Um, I want to look at his teams that he played against. Um, I know he lost to Castro,
Yeah, I got it
but
right here.
as
It was a
as
win
we've
versus
mentioned
Brad
though, yeah, and then
Visions.
like he dismantled like the this. I think where he really caught my attention is when he dismantled Krim, and I know we have our opinions about Krim, right? But he dismantled him. It was embarrassing. I was thoroughly embarrassed for Krim in that game because he was absolutely helpless. And Krim is not some scrub, like respectfully. I know some of y'all may believe that, one of which is no longer in the league, but for the most part, I don't think Krim's a scrub, and it was just kind of crazy that he got destroyed like that. Um, and then I saw the game that he had against Q, and the Falcons. I seen the game against him and you. Um, that was impressive too. So I mean, I think overall, Mason could end up contending for a title. Like he would be my pick for like, okay, there's a new guy that's going to win a title this cycle. Who is it? I would probably pick him. I think he is up there in my top three of users that it's like, okay, they're probably going to win their first title this cycle. Um, and I think that's an impressive three to be a part of, especially with having just joined the league. And
Gotcha.
I think that overall he is progressing really well as well. He's probably the best new user we got so far. I have to see how these other gentlemen that just joined, Blunty and what's the other guy's name? West. I got to see how those guys play. I scrim them both. West seems like he runs a good offense, and Blunty seems like he runs a good defense. So I'll be interested to see how things go. We got newer people, and there'll be newer people to come. But right now, he's at he's the cream of the crop of the new crowd, and I think he could likely contend for a title in the SFL
He,
sooner rather than later.
he looked good in his scrim, to be honest with you. So you kind of got a whiff even in his scrim of what he could be. But you know, let everybody else kind of figure out what's going on. But so moving on, we've covered Zach, TRC, Rocket, and Mason. Now we'll get to fucking nasty Nate.
Oh God,
Yeah.
this guy.
Wow. Hey man, you gotta remain impartial. But
This man thought 63 points. He thought it was 63 points. Since like
look,
how? How though?
I don't
All
listen.
right, I all right. Never mind. Never mind.
It's all
Never mind.
good. It's all good.
Leave it
Um.
alone.
So week one, he. I'm gonna be honest. He crimmed that game. He had Ed dead the rights. It was like 21-3, 21-6, something like that. And he ended up getting blown out. But outside of that, he won convincingly against me. He won versus TRC in a game that we spoke about a little earlier. He won versus Stacks. He won versus Visions. He won versus Dylan. And for whatever reason, your man went and scored.
Not your man. Not your man.
He went and scored more than 59 versus Rockin'. I mean, you don't gotta refute him. I'm not. It's a figure of speech. I'm not saying y'all go hang out. I mean, technically, I'm not even gonna get into that. But he liked the way you sound. So, but getting back to the actual list, before I saw what I saw today, and I'm not talking about the infraction. Like he had a more complete game, so to speak. But his game has kind of devolved into what I saw earlier, and I don't know if it's chasing prompts or whatever, but that's not like I don't think that's conducive to winning a title. Again, that's my opinion. But prior to this level of play that he has, produced on the field here lately, I would have said he's definitely one of the better guys in the league. I think he said he was top six himself or something like that.
It was something stupid.
So like he has a pretty good user and offensively he's solid. I mean, we all can have areas we can improve in, some more than others. But from a skill standpoint, and like I was telling you, me and another admin was saying like he was a reformed mutt baby. So you still have those little tendencies and things or whatever that you're trying to kick to the side, and that's completely fine or whatever the case is. But we can't confuse that with skill. Like clearly, you gotta have a certain level of skill to produce, and he has that, and he is inside of the top 10 in the league, at least for now. Like if he doesn't go back to the way he was playing, he's easily outside of this. But you can't argue with what he's doing right now. I mean, you can, but he's 7-1. I believe he's 7-1. So he's on like a 7-game win streak. But we'll see what the future holds because his next game is versus the Steelers guy. Then he got to play Malik, then TRC, then Zach. So we'll see what happens as we go down the stretch. Your thoughts on Nate?
I feel like his game has devolved. I'm just being outright. If I watched a part of the game that he had against Rams, and if that has been what he's been doing, then he's not going to win a title. He's not. If he's relying strictly, and I'm not going to give game out, but it's obvious. We saw what just happened in the game against the Rams. If he's running streaks like crazy, he's going to run into the wrong one that's actually going to be mindful to not allow that to happen. And then what? I feel like you can be as talented as you want to be in the SFL or in Madden in general, and you can play to a certain standard and just air it out all day long. But if you don't work on the other actual fundamentals of your game, then and you just stick to stuff that is almost gimmicky, then eventually you're going to run into somebody that's going to stop those gimmicks and you're going to be out there looking crazy. So I I am fine with Nate in the top 10, but I wouldn't have him in the upper part of the top 10 right now. Not based
Well,
on
well,
what I've heard and what I've seen.
technically we're still in the bottom half, but
Okay.
I get what you're saying. But this is the cutoff.
Yeah, I mean,
It's the cutoff point, and through
okay, then that's fine that he's in the bottom half of the
through
top 10.
through al-
I'd be fine with that.
through alphabetical order. The irony is he was six through alphabetical order.
Mhm.
As I'm looking at this now. But anyway, number five is someone that he says he's better than consistently, and that's Malik. Do you want to open up talking about Malik?
Sure. So first and foremost, I just mentioned my top three users most likely to win a title, and I mentioned to win a title for the first time, and I mentioned Mason. Um, there is there is a very large gap between number one on that list of mine and then two and three. And Malik is head and shoulders above anyone else in that regard. He is very, very likely to win himself a title despite all of the Super Bowl losses that he has had, not just in our league, but across other leagues that we've witnessed. He is eventually going to win a title in this league. And I think that with the situation that he has with the Chargers, it is this is the time. This is the time to go. LB is not looking like LB right now. That was his primary obstacle in the AFC. Now it's looking like Zach. With respect to Zach, I don't expect Zach to stop Malik from winning a title in AFC. I just don't see it. So I'm not saying red carpet to the AFC title game. I'm saying that it's very likely that we're seeing Malik season one, maybe even season two and season three in the AFC title game, in the Super Bowl, and then eventually winning one of those, maybe even two to make up for lost time. I don't know. So Nate is not better than Malik. I'm just getting that out there now. I'm not going to describe why or anything. I'm just saying it outright. Nate is not better than Malik. Nate plays up to Malik because it's just I don't know. Uh it's just kryptonite right now. It's Malik and the way he plays, it's just not a good matchup against Nate. And I think that's fine because there are people that a lot of us just don't play well against. Like I don't play well against JD when he was in the league, but I personally would never say that JD was, better than me or anything. No offense to JD. I know I'm throwing strays out there right now, but just in general, like sometimes you just have bad matchups just based on the way you play and based on the way they play. And we all have them, and sometimes it's users that ability wise are just below you. And I think this is one of those instances in which a user that's below him just happens to have his number. And I think that's Nate to Malik, but I don't think that makes Nate better of a user than Malik. And I said I wasn't going to explain that, but I ended up explaining it anyway.
Yeah, I've
But
noticed.
in terms of just Malik in his game, he is one of the best users in the league on offense, one of the best users in the league on defense. The only issue that Malik has is that he absolutely sucks at building a roster. That's his only issue. Everything else is pristine and clean. One of the best passing games you'll see, one of the better running games you'll see, one of the better run defenses you'll see, one of the best pass defenses you will see. Primary issue is getting the right players in the right spot to help produce on both fronts. That's the issue. Other than that, he would be in my top three easily by
Understandable.
far.
Yeah,
And that's all.
high praise for Malik. I get it. Um, so I'm pretty much with you. With like Malik has a high skill cap, right? Like it shows itself, but he's also his own worst enemy, and he is not prone. Well, he is prone to making late game mistakes that brings another team back into the game, or he'll cause a blunder that causes him to lose the game. Case in point, week one, I watched him play Bird. For those of you who may not be familiar with Bird, for the most part, Bird is a three-time champion, and one of the better owners in the league, and he's been like that for a good while. Malik pretty much dismantled him for two straight quarters. Like it was a blowout, and all of that talent in Miami couldn't really do anything against the way Malik played him. But with that being the case, Malik, I'm gonna be a spade is a spade, man. Like he got a little crim in his blood too, and
Yeah.
he threw Bird back into the game and put himself in a dogfight until he pulled away late. And he habitually does this. I I don't know if it's a lack of concentration or whatever, but this happens and it happens too frequently. If he can kind of absolve himself of that, I do think he'll win a championship sooner than later. If you're asking me if I think he's better than Nate, I do think he's better than Nate. But I also, to what your point you were trying to make, styles make fights. So he may have his number for now. But I also think that if Malik can kind of figure out Nate, Nate has to kind of go back to the drawing board at that point and figure out what can he do to stop Malik. But he has his number. But that's neither here nor there. Like Malik does get busy, and he lost in probably one of the better games of the year to Dallas. Like that was a very interesting game. I caught the last half of that game, but that was something to watch. That was punch counter punch, some haymakers in there or whatever. But I will say that Malik does absolutely get busy. So moving on now, leaving Malik, because going off of this, Malik would have been quote unquote five. But next up, and we've spoken on him in two instances already, it's going to be LB. Briefly, I'll just speak about LB. LB has already admitted he doesn't have, the amount of time allotted to put into the game that he normally does. And through his own admission, is not like he's how can I say this? You would think he would be better on offense than he actually is. When you just take into account the sheer knowledge of football that he has. I'm pretty sure he knows more football than anybody in the league. And for whatever reason, like he knows how to attack an offense, like defensively, handicap somebody, cripple somebody, but it doesn't translate. And I'm not saying he's inept on offense at all because he could definitely put points up. But I think that, and I mean this in all sincerity, if LB ever was to have like a top seven offense, then at that point he becomes the fucking bookie man. You get what I'm saying? And he,
Absolutely.
he has a very very good team. I mean, all teams have holes in this game, but like he's always in the thick of things. Like he's always in contention. You can't count him out. You just never know. Okay, he about to go on this run, and it's not like what can you do? It's just he's a model of consistency. Like he does what he has to do, and he does it at a high level. He won versus Bryce. He got dispatched by Mike. Julian goose egged him, gave him the Turk treatment. Sorry, Turk. um, Max, but he lost to TLC. But he got Turk. Jesus, Turk, you better wake up for that one, my guy. But you gotta play Gus, a new guy. I'm not sure Burrow's back at that point. He might be. If so, I definitely will take interest in that game. Malik is on the horizon. Rockin' is on the horizon. You're on the schedule. Bird is on the schedule. So we'll get to experience almost in real time where LB is. Not to say that he hasn't been challenged already this cycle, because he has, but at a certain point as you go down the stretch, you almost have to dedicate yourself a little bit more than you were in the beginning. You get me? Like, it's very difficult to just not practice and then turn around and like win a championship. It's almost like just, going to play the lotto and randomly getting all the numbers and becoming a millionaire. Like, the odds are almost in that favor. But if he puts a little more time into it, life gets in the way or whatever. I definitely see LB is he's always in it. Like you can't mention like the key players in the AFC and not mention him. And maybe he's playing the way he is because he don't want Lamar to die. Shit happens, but he's always there. Thought steps.
I agree, and I want to say that for those that don't know, LB, I think he has seven, or is it eight titles? Which one is it?
I would have to check. It's either 7 or 8.
All right, all right. So he's one of the most highly decorated users in SFL. Um, his reign of terror, reign of dominance spans a decade of SFL play. Honestly,
Shit,
this is
more
the
than
most
that.
vulnerable. I know. It's been longer than like 12, 13 years.
Yeah, it's about that.
Like it's honestly, LB has been the pinnacle of consistency more than anybody that I've seen outside of you. Be completely honest. I feel like you and him, models of consistency. I've seen AC win a lot, and I've seen AC have some struggles. But for the most part, AC is pretty solid, but not nearly as consistent as yourself or as consistent as LB. So, obviously that's himself. But in general, just speaking, LB is one of the best users in the league. He is not nearly as attentive to Madden as he had been, like you mentioned. But I want to make mention that you're essentially getting what 70% of what LB is like ability wise. He still dispatched both Krim and Bird with relative ease. I do think Julian has his number because
LB has
even
8.
last Madden, oh, he has eight.
Yeah,
Okay, so eight titles for LB.
so
But I
he
do
he's
think
tied for
Julian, or
tied
not
for
Julian,
second
but
all
Mike.
time.
Okay, so I think Mike owns LB right now. I think he's just one of those users that has his number, which again, all because you have a player's or a person's number doesn't mean you're better than them. So Mike's not better than LB, but right now Mike seems to have the answers to the questions that LB may have. But he's still dismantling people and he's still out here shining and he's still going to make the playoffs. And you getting an LB in the playoffs at 70%, it's probably better than most of y'all at 120%, respectfully. Like LB is that good. So he may be skating right now. He's probably relying on the fact that he's just really good and not practicing because his life is in the way. But I would put nothing against LB making it to the playoffs and then cranking that engine and saying, okay, it's time to ride. And he goes back to practicing. He goes back to reading. Okay, let me see how these people playing. Let me go look at these Twitch streams. Let me go see these past 3, 4 games that you've had and take away your best weapon on some Bill Belichick stuff. I wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised at all. So LB is still a threat, even though he's what he's got what 2 losses right now. He's still one of the major threats in the
Yep.
AFC, and I would not, at this current moment, I would not put anyone above him but Malik. That's it.
Yeah, it's 2 losses to the Colts and the Lions. I'll let you continue. The next person on this list is Bird.
Okay. Hmm, Bird, huh? All right. Well, here's my thing with Bird. Um, I think Bird is a really good user. Um, I don't think he is nearly. I don't think he's getting nearly enough out of the team that he has in terms of like how good that team should be in terms of how they're playing other people. For example, um, he okay, so he won against Pat Lad the other day, and I know internet, and I know the kicking meter was all jacked up, but even just watching that game in general, it just seemed like I don't know, like he was playing down. Like he was playing down to a Panthers roster, to a lesser user. He was just playing down in general. And then I saw the game against Krim. Krim that game away 3 separate times, and yet he still won. The bird that I'm familiar with, the one that has what 3, 4 titles now? I think it's three.
It's three. Yeah.
Three. The one that has 3 titles, he should have smoked Krim for those mistakes that he made. I don't know. I don't get it. I'm not sure. Like, okay, he smoked Gabe. That's fine. He won against Castro. I think that's probably his most impressive victory, holding Castro to 9 points, one, and then actually winning the game. So I don't know. I just feel like Bird in the past would be destroying people, especially with a highly gifted offense like he has, where there's speed everywhere. It just doesn't seem like he's getting the most out of that roster, and I'm just a little iffy. I have to see how he plays against Zach this week. I think that'll be a premium matchup. Then I got to see against Cody, and then I have to see against Mason. I think those 3 games, and then obviously LB towards the end of the season. I think those 3 games up like soon. I think those are going to be real good signs of like how Bird actually is in terms of top 10, upper or lower half. I think for me, I would have Bird in the lower half at this time, but I'm okay with him being in the upper half because of his overall body of work, and for the sake of the fact that he's playing well. He's just not playing supremely well like I expected him to.
Gotcha. Um, there has been a dip in play with Bird, but I think that's more so he's getting a little older. You don't really have the time. It's not excuses. It just happens. You don't have the time to allocate to Madden like you used to. My man is going on
That's fair.
vacations and school and things like that or whatever. But when he's on, so to speak, you have to take him serious. Like he doesn't really shy away from a challenge for the most part. Like upon him getting here, like he immediately went to war with B. Like he kind of earned the respect of the people in the league as we the more he played, he kind of figured it out, and everybody plays to their strengths, but his strengths to a lesser degree took away some of the things that people like. If he knew you, and it's kind of common sense, but he did it at a high level. If he knows you like to do something, he's gonna try and take it away. He's gonna make you pretty much box southpaw, and you gotta try and win the game that way. There's a different performance. It happens, definitely happens, but he's still here in this particular list. Um, the argument could be made if it's top half or the bottom half of the top 10 or whatever the case is, but the point is that he's here. Now, naturally, we're going in alphabetical order, so that's one thing. But so far, we've covered Zach, TRC, Rockin', Mason, Nasty Nate, Malik, LB, and now Bird. So next up would be Bryce, and I'll kick off this one. From Bryce, Bryce is when Bryce joined. Bryce was, and he'll tell you, Bryce was King Mutt. So there had to be like an adjustment period for him to like kind of acclimate to Sim. But it was kind of tough because he legitimately joined. The Eagles are always one of the better teams in Madden, and he won a championship his first season. So you could not tell Bryce shit. And there are a few owners here who, when they're winning, the arrogance is on a different level. So Bryce was one of those. Quiet as Cap, Bird kind of had it. Ed had it in spades. Like when they're winning, can't tell them nothing. You can kind of see it on Nate too, but that's another story for another day. But like Bryce knew he was good, and you couldn't tell him anything. And he went to a bunch of Super Bowls, and again, like I said, he became a champion early. And those core, you know, values, those skill sets that you have, they don't really go away. But what ends up happening over time in this league is your opposition tends to catch up with you to take away the things you want to do, as we were speaking on before. And Bryce found himself for a while in a position where he was losing way more than he would have liked, and there was a dip in confidence, and that's a like a soul searching type of deal that he kind of had to go through. But he's pretty much like back. When you see him, well, me speaking for myself, you can kind of see the guy who had all that bravado, but he's also been humble, so he's not gonna let himself get that high. But if you talk shit to him, you're gonna rile him up, and you may see that Bryce that has been to like 5 Super Bowls. Bryce, when he's ready, plays at one of the highest levels in the league, and this is no cap, and that's just something to be said. I think he's really good when he's not bullshitting. I think Bryce is really good, and he didn't have to take the Texans, but he did. And I mean, I commend him for it. I mean, shit, we all could have taken the most powerful teams in the game, but what fun is that? Well, I can only speak for myself. There's no,
Shoot, I'm having fun.
I'm pretty sure you are, but there's I don't like that shit is not me. I would rather be in a competitive division. I don't necessarily have one right now. In order for that to happen, I probably would have to take one of the better teams in the game. It is what it is. But anyway, with Bryce is really good and has been really good for a long time. And he has the pieces. They're just young. As he adds to the talent pool, and he has almost infinite cap. Like I think he's really gonna not necessarily turn the AFC on its head, pause, but he's gonna be in the mix, and you really gonna have to deal with him. Like I think it's like that. Like I think if he gets his team up to par, it's not so cut and dry for Malik. I'll say that. And with that, I'm done with Bryce. You can say what you want.
I respect this one. I know. that right now Bryce doesn't have a single win against a single user. Like he has 3 wins, but they're all CPU wins. So I I know it's easy to look at that and say, well, who has he played and won against? Fair. But I think if you know the level of talent that this Texans roster is missing, on top of the level of the level of disrespect that they've given quarterbacks this cycle with inaccurate passes all over the place, it's just a recipe for a lot of issues just calling a game play to play. You're more hesitant to throw the football because you know that you don't have the receivers to go out there and make a play on a football that may be underthrown or overthrown, and it's going to happen often. So I know what he's dealing with a team like that. I've had a team like that. It is not fun. I just haven't had the experience of having a team like that and then having to deal with the fact that the way that Madden is this year is that quarterbacks are not accurate by any means. So I know there's a lot of that going on. Um, and I think also the consistency of playing users can help. I think when you're consistently playing against users, you are sharper and you're more familiar with what you want to do on offense and defense.
Facts.
Bryce hasn't had that luxury. Bryce had LB, and then he had Mike, he had Gomes, but then he had a computer game, and then he got smoked by UQ. Then he had another computer game, and then he had a bye week. Then he had another computer game. So it's so much inconsistency with his schedule right now that I don't blame him for having these issues that he has. He's got to find like when he gets to this stretch right here, starting now. He's got Schwartz, then he's got Guz and the Bengals. He's got Brad. He has Gomes. He has Vijon. And then he
It's
has
crazy.
Cody. He has Max. Like he has a stretch of games where they are winnable games. And I
I
think
think he
this
can
is
win 9 out of his next 10, no question.
I do not doubt that. And I think that's where we will see what you just said come more so to fruition. Because I agree. I think he's much better. He's playing much better. He's playing much more sound. He's not doing nearly as many dumb things as he was last Madden or the one before. Because didn't he miss a Madden? No, he had a hectic work schedule
Yeah, that
last
was
Madden,
last
but then he
Madden.
came back. That's
Right.
right. So you're really starting to see signs of life with Bryce. Like he's back. And I think once he gets more in tune with his team, you'll start to see it, as well as, like you mentioned, lots of cap space. There's going to be a lot of players that are not going to re sign with their teams because of the way that we have things set this year. He's going to have a bevy of talent out there that he's going to be able to pluck. Just, I want this player, I want this player, I want this player because I got the financial to override all of this motivational stuff that you want, and nobody else does. He's going to be able to do that, and he's going to get a much better roster, and he's going to be able to perform a lot better and more so up to his own ability, and it's going to show more in the games he's going to play. So I can see that for him, and I can see that working out for him. And I actually think that like he and Bird, they're in similar spots, but going in opposite directions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely. Um, I don't necessarily need the super egotistical Bryce back, but I do need the Bryce back that was telling me he was 5-1 against me
Hmm.
from way back or whatever the case is. Like that Bryce with that bravado, that braggadocio or whatever. But I guess in order for that to come back, he has to produce on the field. But looking at this schedule, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he's guaranteed to win these, and he may end up in a dogfight with Cody, because Cody, for better or worse, has been whooping some people's asses. don't
Man,
necessarily know how. I don't know if it's the Wi-Fi Wonderland or whatever, but he's been handling his business. But I definitely can see a scenario where Bryce wins 9 out of his next 10, and then all of a sudden, and I think he already has like 4 losses, and then he could theoretically be 12-5. God forbid he wins versus Mike. Like Bryce could win out. I'm not saying it happens, but it's something to if he can kind of figure this shit out and the team cooperates with him, like this is something that can happen. But lastly, going in alphabetical order, and I guess I'll let you pick this up. It would be Andre.
Andre Carter. Of course.
It's the only person you gave
Um,
government for. That's insane. But go ahead.
hopefully he doesn't listen to this podcast, or I will get slandered. At least I didn't say the other name that he
Yeah, we're
that
not
was
doing that.
revealed to. Yeah, we're not doing that. All right, all right, all right. Well, so let's talk about. So I think uh, I think we're seeing the results of a great user getting a great team, and I think I say that as complimentary as possible to the fact that AC with any team is a problem. But AC with this team, with these abilities, in the key positional spots, like cornerback, left tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, I think you see and edge. I mean, I think you're seeing exactly what is supposed to happen. is it's been besides the game against Cody, which I need to go back and watch that tape because I don't know what happened in that game because I didn't see it. But besides the game against Cody, every single game.
Outside
Oh,
of
and
Void,
Malik.
yeah.
Yeah, and Malik. He's been thoroughly dominant in every single game. And he hasn't played like scrubs up and down, right? Like he played against me, destroyed me. He played against Rockin, who we've given regard to Rockin, destroyed Rockin. All intents and purposes, I think AC is very likely to be the 1 seed in the NFC this year. I don't know who can stand in his way unless he slips and falls on his own. I don't see. I mean, I don't see him losing to Krim. I don't see him losing to Gabe. I don't see him losing to whoever is the new Panthers user. I think him versus Mason is going to be a fun one to watch. He's going to absolutely destroy Turk. No offense to Turk. He's going to win against Krim again.
Bro.
Castro might be a good matchup. Bird's going to be a good matchup, but I've seen AC versus Bird. AC is probably going to win that game too. I think if anybody can match up with that Dolphins offense, it's going to be the Cowboys defense. That is just not going to be a good matchup. I think TRC has a chance, and then Mason at the end of the year has a chance. But when I say a chance, I mean like
My
a
nigga,
non 0%
I,
chance.
I,
So
I need you to listen to what I'm telling you right now.
I'm listening.
Micah Parsons is a 99 overall edge rusher with 96 speed. I'm gonna just leave that there. You may continue.
That is the most ridiculous.
Go ahead, finish what you
But
were
but
saying.
but that's my thing though. You like we as a collective allowed AC to get this team. Like we did
The
this.
fuck do you mean we?
We
Well,
did
it's my
this.
fault because I didn't take them.
It's all of us. No,
I
no, no,
hate the
no. It's
Cowboys.
all of
I'm
us.
never taking that fucking
It's
team.
all of us in the SFL by our combined wins and losses in the postseason, in the regular season's last cycle. We allowed AC, and then the Madden draft, the team draft, where we let the Cowboys fall. All of us did this. We allowed AC to get this powerful, powerful team, and he's already a great, fantastic user, probably top three, if not top four in the SFL entirely in its history.
Mm.
This is bad. This is bad news for all of us in the NFC. This is bad news for Malik if he has to see him in the Super Bowl. because I don't think Malik wins against AC in the Super Bowl. If I had to pick someone that he has to play against in the NFC, yeah, it's not a good look, man. It's bad. It's all bad, man. This should have never happened. But I say all this with absolute regard and absolute like complete respect for AC as a user and as a whole. Like he's not some scrub with a great, fantastic team that's just out here whooping people because his attributes and his players are just so much better. Like me, he's not me. he
What
he
kind of
he is one of the best users.
self-deprecating shit is
Was
this? I'm listening though.
well, I'm just being honest. You know what
Okay.
I'm saying?
I hear you.
Yeah. So AC is him. AC has a great team, and AC is shining, and he's going to keep shining. And he's probably going to have an undefeated season eventually this cycle. Just throwing that out there.
Well, what is it? It's been four people in history that have had undefeated seasons, and he was the second one.
Yep.
His
He was number two.
his former sensei did it first, which is LB for those who may not know. I also believe AC was the first owner to win um three Super Bowls with three different teams. He was the first one that had done that. Like to start out in the vein of someone who was a living legend in Bowie and carve your own path and arguably can be considered just as great as him. Now, granted, he doesn't have 8 rings, but he's tied for what? Technically fourth. He has 4 rings. Only me, LB, and Brian have more. And AC didn't start when me, Brian, and LB started. I mean, he started later that cycle, but shit, he also won that cycle. Just little revisionist history or whatever. I watched like this, like being around for a little bit. I could safely say there were times where LB was my nemesis, and there were times where B was my nemesis. There were times where AC was my nemesis. There was times where Dub, I mean, he's not here now, was my nemesis. There's a handful of people. I'm like, yeah. When you play certain people, you got to be on your p's and q's, and that's just speaking from a skill perspective. Now, talking about this fucking silly ass team that he's acquired, because I damn sure wasn't picking them. They could have 99s everywhere. I'm still not taking Dallas. I hate them that much. But outside of the Cody game and Malik, as we were saying earlier, he's pretty much whipped everybody's ass, and that's something to be said. This dude still ain't made his book. He kind of
Wait, 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 wait.
what happened?
AC is out here killing people, and he hasn't made his book
He
yet.
has not made his book. He's kind of going through the motions right now, to be honest with you.
Oh my gosh, bro. Thanks, man.
So,
This is worse. Oh my god.
but I mean, that doesn't mean like he can't lose again, right? He has to. He definitely has to see Mason. I am gonna be tuned into that. He's got to play Castro. He's got to play Bird. He has to play TRC. He has to play Mason again. So on the docket, like he has some games where he has to dogfight. But I guess the best part of like his particular situation, especially now, and I guess Bowie used to have that too. Like you can have like when you have a really good team, you're afforded to not always have to be on your P's and Q's or your A game because your team can kind of cover for some of that. So you may see games where he's not at his best, and he still may win just because of the talent around him. And then you may see games where he's on his shit, he's on his p's and q's, and the team is running around mobbing, and then you get dog walked. You get what I'm saying? So I believe I don't know. He plays who this week? Krem? Rip Krem.
Yes.
R.I.P. Krem. Like,
Yeah, that's a.
so
It's about to be bad.
when it's all said and done, you, him, and Nasty Nathaniel are all 7-1. But not to say that you guys can't win out, but if I'm a betting man, I would more so lean towards saying him just because of the skill level and the team. Like the team, my nigga Parsons is on the edge with 96 speed.
That's ridiculous. I'm
Like
still
it's
I'm
it's
still honestly
almost
rattled
like
over here.
it's almost like having Jalen Waddle rushing the passer, but he's
Yeah, that's
also a
stupid.
99 overall with four abilities, I believe, and an X factor.
It's insane. See
And
this like
so,
the man hasn't taken off his Namekian armor yet, and
you
you're
are
telling me
stupid.
like no book, like he has no book,
You are stupid, yo.
and he's out here. Jesus,
Calm down, man.
this
But
man is handicapped, and he's out here crushing people. That's crazy.
but again,
I okay.
part of that part of that could be the team, but in no way am I diminishing, his ability. I do think he's one of the best that has ever done it. And like, all right, I'll say it like this, and then I'll pretty much be done with that. Like, if we were to say like Bowie in his prime was like a 6 on offense and like a 10 on defense, then if we're putting AC in his prime, then we're gonna say he's like a 9 on defense and maybe like a 7.5 on offense. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm. I
That's
hear
what
you, man.
it's like. It's comparable if you get what I'm saying. So does he get busy? Absolutely. Like we've thrown praise on Malik, and Malik is pretty much running around dog walking people, but he lost to AC. But then AC lost to Cody. We don't know how, but it happened. I
See
don't
that?
know. I don't know if that was a wake up call after that or whatever. But from that point after that, he ain't lost again, and all the games have pretty much been brutal. So, uh, is there anything else you want to say before we finish this? Because we end up running a little long.
A little is an understatement. You said
Yeah.
20 minutes, and it's about to be 2 a.m., and I got to get up in 4 hours.
So
So, nah, we good, man.
we
I like your top 10. I like your two on the outside. I honestly don't have any disagreements. I think you got a solid list there. So I'm absolutely with you.
appreciate that. So that was my list. I decided to bring some context into it for those who, because when you present lists like this, you always need reasons. Because if I just said, "Yo, this is the list," my PMs is gonna be on fire. How could you say
Mm,
this and put him here and I'm not here and like that type of environment or whatever the case is. But I just wanted to provide a list and put some context to it. There's a lot of one-loss teams that are really good for now. Like time will tell, So that was with everything. That's pretty much it. I never anything that I'm producing. I don't put myself in. I keep saying it because that's just what it is. But I'm looking forward to having an interesting cycle, and I think we will have fun. So with that being the case, we are signing out. Appreciate you guys for staying up so late with us. Pause that too, and we catch you guys on the next one. This is Q. That's Steps. That was the top 10. And we out of here.
Yeah.
I knew it, boy.